So off they went. A little earlier start time this morning, 10:45. It was put forward because of those extra 10 kilometres. Due to start at 10:53 originally. There's Rafa Micah in the white. He's looking after that white Best Young Riders jersey for the Australian Michael Matthews. Points jersey, the red jersey still on the shoulders of Elia Viviani after he moved down to that yesterday. And the blue jersey for the King of the Mountains, looked after by Martin Cialinghi. There's Stefano Locchio in the car, waving the flag, getting them off. And very early on, there were attacks straight away. Johnny Hogeland going on the attack for Androni Giocattoli. Dutch champion, I can tell you, not managing to stay away. He was reeled in very quickly indeed. But there would be other attacks coming up very, very quickly. Androni Bardiani looking to get in the break. We're passing through Nola on the live pitches at the moment. Home to Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno. And again, home to pretty impressive architecture. Of course, impressive architecture all over Italy, but we're in Lazio today. It's the region of the capital, Rome, of course. Monuments lining the countryside from the Roman Empire. 109 kilometres remain on the longest day of the Giro. This is our breakaway. 3 Italians and a Colombian. Marco Bandiera right at the front in the white there, wearing 26. Rafa Torres is the rider in black from Team Colombia. Andrea Fedi, his second breakaway of this Giro d'Italia, is in the Neri Sottoli colours, as well as pardon me, Eduardo Zardini of Bardiani. Looking back to the peloton, 108.7 kilometres today. Sean Kelly, who's alongside me in the commentary box. Sean, we saw the first little jabs yesterday for the general classification. More of the same today?
I think much the same menu today, although the menu, there's a few extra courses. 257 kilometres, as you said in the opening part, a bit extra because of a landslide. So it's going to be a long day. Again, the weather conditions, they're not so bad out there, but again, we can see the clouds hanging around, and it's not the type of weather the riders would like here. They'd like a bit more sunshine, a bit more heat, but it's 20 degrees, so it's going to be another show for the general classification men, and we could see maybe a change of race leadership today, because this is a mountaintop finish that I think if we see a bit of action earlier on, we could see some of the general classification men losing a little bit of time. Nothing hugely today, but we could see some little cracks.
First real difference is expected on Saturday. There's Michele Scarponi, whose team cannot stay off the ground at the minute. 3 Astana riders going down yesterday. Almost the whole team en masse going down on the way to Dublin the other day. Paul Mikel Landa taking a fall right towards the end of the stage and losing a little bit of time. Bernie Eisel riding towards the front. Interesting that Sky are interested in this today. They had Edvald Boasson-Hagen looking pretty good yesterday. Just didn't have it to launch the sprint, and it was a funny stage in that not much happened until that last circuit, and the rain started to come down. The nerves were all over the place. It was a very good attack from Gianluca Brambilla. At the moment here, the gap is at 5:40. I can tell you that the break had a maximum of 12 minutes and 16 seconds after 60 kilometres today. Brambilla attacking yesterday. Mega Farmer quick step, almost getting some bonus seconds with Rigoberto Urán. He tried. Paul's working for him, and it's going to be interesting to see which of the big boys shows the best form on the climb. We're talking around 7 hairpins on the way up, average gradient of just 5%. As Sean said, not huge differences, but we saw the men in form yesterday. They were certainly Ulissi, Arredondo from Track Factory Racing, the Colombian, the Australian Evans, the former Tour de France winner, and of course Rigoberto Urán, the top 4.
Yes, I think all the big favourites men were up there yesterday. Talking about Sky, they were looking good in the final couple of 100 metres. Boasson-Hagen looked in a good position, but he really suffered in the last couple of 100 metres because he really slipped down. He was the last man to be in that time of a second down on Ulissi, the winner. And the other one, Dario Cataldo, he was good yesterday, and we've seen him in the past in the Giro. When he's on form, he can ride well on home soil. Of course, I think he have a bit more motivation maybe. So for Sky, they have 2 men up there, and we can see Bernie guys are riding a bit on the front at the moment. Possibly thinking of a stage here today that they could maybe take the stage with some of those guys.
Movistar rode fairly well for Nairo Quintana. He was unable to take any bonus seconds, as we got our almost daily shot of Gianni Savio there in the car for Androni. Marco Bandiera in the break. Savio following the break today. It's funny, when you and I sat down to write a newspaper article a couple of days ago, previewing this stage, we thought very much that this would be the type of stage that the teams like Androni, Bardiani, Neri Sottoli and Colombia would all attack. They're all in the break here, but of course, if they're in the break's not looking likely to stay away. It's going to end up being the big boys that play it out at the end.
Yes, looks very much the case at the moment. Only 4 men allowed out in the front, which is a difference from yesterday, where we had 11 men up front. So for Ulrike Greenedge and Michael Matthews to control the race here, it's a bit more easy. And of course, when you see the way Michael Matthews finished yesterday, he was impressive, because for that sort of finish, I was concerned that he might get into difficulty, but rode quite well. And we did hear in the interview that he had to close the gap, and we see that in the final couple of 100 metres. He said, I think, in one of the interviews, Quintana left a little bit of gap, so he was the one had to close. So that was a good performance, because he did close the gap, and I think it took the edge off his sprint. So it's looking like it's going to come back down again today. The big guys, I think, will play it out in the end. It will certainly come back to, you know, the big bunch will go on to the final climb, and then there will be that battle again between the big guys. But we could see some of the guys maybe who are not the big favourites for the overall taking glory here today.
On the way through Cicciano, on the way into the region of Lazio, finishing up in the province of Frosinone, which will start tomorrow. A lot of the teams staying in and around hotels. Some staying down in Cassino tonight, some with a larger transfer, having to drive 30 to 40 kilometres. $106.2 kilometres to go. I mentioned over the last couple of days that the Giro very much getting in and out of the south whenever they can. And it's the case today. No stage start or finish in the Campania region. Been through the King of the Mountains passage at Cava di Tirreni today. That's where Matt Goss won a couple of years ago in the rain. Bernie Eisel and Patrick Gretsch, two riders who know each other very well. Former teammates, of course, as they point out potholes for each other. Peloton rolling along, the gap very much being controlled at the moment. Sky helping out with control of the peloton today. They rode strongly. Asher Dosella Mondial as well have been riding on there with Patrick Gretsch, Bernie Eisel for Sky. Svein Tuff we've seen, as well as Cameron Meyer for Orica Greenedge, doing some of the riding, and Patrick Gretsch, well, doing the job that he was signed to do by Asher Dosella when he came over from Giant Shimano. Giant Shimano have a birthday in the team today, the only one in the peloton. Happy birthday to Tom Stamschneider, son of the former cyclocross world champion Henny Stamschneider. Tom now 29. Peloton just riding through Cicciano, pardon me, where we went through the other day. Saw the breakaway coming through a moment ago. Winner yesterday, Diego Lisi. A real champion's touch to the win. Came off the wheel of a teammate, closed the gap with Matthews as well, and appeared out of nowhere on our victory screens in the last 20 to 30 metres. Was his second win on the Giro d'Italia. First after that fight with then Italian champion Giovanni Visconti right on the line in Tirano in the north of Italy, 2011. So it would have been nice to raise his hands knowing he was the winner over the line. A lot of talk in the Italian papers this morning about the Tuscan rider. Comes from Cecina, very close to Livorno on the west of Tuscany. Two-time junior world champion, 2006 and 2007. 16th pro win yesterday. And a lot of pressure on him already, Sean, because he's another new hope of Italian cycling at a time when they're doing quite a lot of soul-searching.
Yes, well, of course, the Giro is always the time where, you know, the pressure is on any of the Italian riders that are showing some promise. It's the normal thing, and nothing changes in cycling when you're in Belgium. And of course, you know, you go to the Belgium races, well, then the press, all of that, there's all that pressure and the pushing, and that is the same in Italian cycling. And I suppose, yeah, they haven't the number of riders. Maybe in the past they had more riders, you know, up there. Now they haven't as many riders performing at the high level. But it's if you look back at the Giro, I suppose the past couple of years, the Italians have been getting some of the glory out with stage wins, and of course with Nibali last year winning the race. It's nice to see, and good for cycling, good for Italian cycling.
Well, they were a little disappointed that it's only Nibali that's going for the Grand Tours at the minute, having several Grand Tour contenders over the last few years. So much pressure already on this guy that the national team coach, the new national team coach, the man who used to commentate for the national broadcaster, Davide Cassani, saying that Diego reminds me a little of Moreno Argentin. Not a bad comparison, and quite a lot of pressure already to put on the shoulders.
Yes, well, I think if you look at his palmarès, you know, as a junior, he was really a good one, and they were probably, you know, expecting him to be winning a bit more when you start winning races at a good age in a cycling nation. Well, then it becomes difficult, because they start, you know, saying, well, you're the next Argentina, or in Belgium you're the next Merckx and all of that, and that puts pressure on riders. And Ulissi, I think he probably suffered a bit in his earlier years. I would say the expectations were greater than what he's achieved.
Well, he's 1 minute and 23 down on the overall at the minute. 7th in the young rider classification. You can see the leader, Michael Matthews, overall is still the leader of the best young rider standings. We talked about Lampre coming in with 3 leaders to this Giro d'Italia. Ulissi probably the one with less pressure on. There's Przemysław Niemiec, the Polish rider, is going very, very well, who, for other reasons and Polish historical reasons, will want to do very, very well in Monte Cassino today. A lot of Polish soldiers died in the Battle of Monte Cassino, and there's already been a bit of talk between him and Micah that they might want to do something for Poland today. The thought of Ulissi, though, alongside Kurigo, who is the leader for you in that team? And for Ulissi, is it just about that 1 or 2 stage wins, given that he's a young rider and he's got a lot of stress with the interviews to cope afterwards? Or is he looking to win straight away again today in Monte Cassino, Sean?
Well, I think the way he won yesterday, he rode very intelligently. He just followed, and that's what you've got to do in a situation like that. When you see Nicholas Roach, you know, going in the attack at a kilometre to go, I ask myself sometimes, you know, why does he do that? Because if you just play the waiting game, you never know. Of course, if you're feeling that you cannot do anything, maybe to go on the attack, but you just never know how the others are feeling at a kilometre out. They could be all suffering because of the conditions we've had in the last number of days, and play the game and just follow. And if you have it in the end, well, then just have to go. And Ulissi is the one who I think tactically he worked it very well yesterday. And when he went, of course, he is strong, he is powerful in that sort of sprint, and we see the way he went away from everybody else. And when you win yesterday, well, then you're going to say, well, tomorrow is pretty much a similar finish. You just try and go for another stage victory, and I think Ulissi, that's what he'll be talking about in this Giro, thinking about overall classification. I'm not sure if he will be able to make a place of any great importance.
Well, in fact, Davide Cassani, the national coach, in his newspaper column went on to say that he expects him to be one of those riders who is much more successful in the one-day races, but the big one-day races. He's talking about the 250 kilometre long classics, the monuments, winning something like Liège one day. It'd be interesting to see how he develops. And to finish the point, he says, well, I expect him to be mature and fully ready to realise his full potential within 2 years. Interesting, a lot of pressure on the guy, 24 years of age. Would you agree with those sentiments?
Yes, I think, first of all, the age. He's a young rider. He's a lot of time ahead, and his best years, his strongest years are ahead. And when you win a stage like yesterday, well, then the Ardennes Classics are a race which he could perform well, which he could win, because, you know, the uphill finish, it was a very demanding and a very testing final yesterday. So I did not see any reason why he could not, you know, do well in the Ardennes Classics. The question is that 250, 260 kilometre mark in the Classics. That's sometimes a little bit difficult for some riders. 200, 220 kilometres, they can do it well, but when they go to the 260, they have difficulty adapting to that. But time is on Ulissi's side.
Well, if you want to test over that distance, he's got it today. 257 kilometres. Can't wait to see if any of the distance really puts anybody in trouble, anybody who's not used to riding those long stages yet. This will be the longest stage of the Giro. 97.7 kilometres remain, and I'm afraid it's raining at the finish line. We hope it's a shower, we hope it goes. At least today, the good news is we've no silly descent to take on like yesterday, no dangerous descending, and of course we're not doing any sprinting around the inner city circuit, so we're hoping it's going to be safer than the last few days.
Well, a little bit safer, but again, the final climb is going to be of major importance. Positioning, they're going to start really pushing 15-20 kilometres out from that climb, depending on what way the wind is. If it's a headwind, of course, it will be much slower onto the final climb. And if you have a lot of rain as you go there, the risk of more crashes is always there.
Well, look into the back of the peloton. Nicholas Roach being helped up to the back. He attacked very early yesterday. We'll ask you as to why you think why, Sean, when we come back. Welcome back. 94.8 kilometres to go. Well, we saw Nicholas Roach attacking yesterday. Around a kilometre from the finish line. It was evident that it was a little too early, and he wrote on his blog and in his columns yesterday that he was told to do it by the directeur sportif. What would you do in that case, Sean? Just ignore the man in the car?
Well, I think you have your feeling out there at that point, and it's all about feeling, it's all about experience, and certainly Nicholas Roach has been in there in a lot of finishes like that, similar finishes, and to go at that point, it's going to be very, very difficult to hold off. Around a kilometre to go, I think it was, to hold off the group of big favourites there, and there were still, I think, Katusha riders riding on the front. Maybe they were just about peeling off at that time, so possibly there were a little bit of hesitation, but still, to go at that distance out, so difficult to hold off. I would certainly, not take anything from the director sportif, and I just ride my own race at that time. And you'd be so focused, so concentrated as well. If you hadn't your earpiece out, you should pull it out very quickly when you hear that from the director.
CJ Sutton has had so many knee problems this year. He's had a very, very hard year, the Australian. Got the last-minute call for the Giro d'Italia, replacing Pete Kenyuk. He's already been down in the last couple of days and not feeling so good. Now, Sky riding on the front here. Who do you think they're riding for, Sean?
Well, it's surprising to see them riding so early when you look at the distance from the finish, the advantage of the breakaway, the number of men in the breakaway. They're taking it up very early, and with the riders we have here in this peloton, capable of finishing on an uphill finish like this, the Sky, it's not going to be easy for him to win a stage, although yesterday with Bosenhagen, as I said, with Cataldo, he was up there as well. It's surprising to see them take this up at this moment.
If you think you know why, let us know. Hashtag Eurosport Cycling. We want to hear from you. At Rob Hatch TV, if you want to ask Sean anything directly here in the commentary box as well. 93, right at the back of your picture there in the Garmin jersey, is Thomas Dekker. Long flowing locks falling out of the back of the helmet. It's gone grey. It was nice and sunny earlier on. And you can see those rain clouds and storms in the distance. Absolutely stunning view up here from the helicopter. The shepherd down there waving to us as well. We said we get in and out of the south, but it's always a visit of tradition. There are certain towns and villages where nothing ever seems to change down here. Has both positive and negative implications. If you've never been to the area, it's certainly worth a visit. Beautiful scenery, fantastic food, and extremely friendly people down the south of Italy. Maglia Rosa group, it's the pink jersey group with Michael Matthews in there. We wondered and raised our eyebrows a little when he said he was going for the win yesterday. Showed that he certainly had the legs to be up there. Simone Ponzi getting his red jacket ready. Here the riders going back to the cars and looking for them. I think they were finally hoping that they weren't going to have to use them today, as we get a glimpse as well of Dani Moreno in the red and white there for Katusha, the Spaniard riding for the Russian team. Well, rather like yesterday, Sean, it's a guessing game as to when they want to bring this breakaway back. The good thing is the climb itself, situated at the end, being an uphill finish, is going to do a lot of the job for them, isn't it?
Yes, well, I think they're keeping control of the breakaway, and they're not allowing it to, take this huge advantage where they have to ride real fast in the end. It's just out there once again today, and it will be interesting to see at what time will they take it back. Will they, pull them back much earlier, or will they just allow them to get very close to the final climb and then pull them in? But the calculation, it's the peloton who decide how long the breakaway is staying out there most of the time, and we've seen it yesterday, again today. It's going to be just such a difficult one for the breakaway to keep morale, keep momentum out there and keep on riding. And but it looks like that it's just going to be a bit against them. The odds are against them, stacked against them, to stay out in front, and it's going to come back together. I think at what point, that is the question, but it's going to be a big group that will tackle the final climb of the day.
There's an intermediate sprint coming up. It'd be very interesting to see if Sky continue to ride after that. Of course, if they don't, then we'll have our answer, won't we, as to why they were riding on the front. Ben Swift will be a man looking to pick up some points. It looks as though Sky are taking this points classification seriously with Ben Swift. He's obviously on form. He'll be looking to win a stage. They went for the intermediate sprint yesterday. They got exactly what they were looking for. Swift was out there in the break. Today, they could do a team job to mop up the rest of those points, because we've only got 4 guys in the breakaway.
Yes, well, they will certainly contest. Swift will contest this intermediate sprint, but you don't have to ride in front to do that. For that, like, they've been riding at least 10-15 kilometres on the front here. You just wait with a number of riders with Swift, and when you come to that final kilometre to the sprint, you start to prepare the sprint for him and leave him have his sprint against the other sprinters. But I don't understand why they're riding on the front already, many kilometres now.
Maddaloni. What a fantastic structure on the hill. Again, so many of these things in ruins. A lot of them restored, of course. Where we're climbing to today was majorly, almost completely destroyed by the American bombardments in 1944. Monte Cassino has been restored as much as possible. Of course, the result of the bombardment of the Abbey at the top of the hill still clearly visible. Well, some of you wheeling in at Wheelie 1977 even thinks that Ben Swift could take a win today. Think that's possible? It's a long climb, not the hardest, but again, with all the GC guys expected to have a dig at each other, it would be a remarkable achievement if Swifty could get up there.
I don't agree with that one. When you look at yesterday where he was, if he was in that good shape, he would be maybe up there yesterday. And I think you have to look at, the more recent form, yesterday's finish. I don't think Swift could hang in there with the big favourites and have a go for stage victory. That's highly unlikely. When you look at Sky Team, Henyo, of course, he's also there, so maybe he's the one. He was at 51 seconds, but again, when he's not in there yesterday, but maybe the first day he just adapting to the climbing, so he's the one more likely able to do something.
Sebastian Henao, the youngest rider in this Giro d'Italia. With our breakaway, Marco Bandiera right at the front. In the meantime, disappointed to report that the rain is again falling. We saw a few people reaching back for those jackets not so long ago. Most of them are starting to put them on, certainly towards the back of the peloton where there's not a need to stay up and around for safety. Let's go and check out the breakaway, though. Bandiera mentioned the man in the white, Guardo Zarnini, riding in the lime green. He is the rider for Bardiani. Torres, the Colombian rider, right at the back, riding in the black jersey. And this is the intermediate sprint. Andrea Fedi, second time in the breakaway for him. Young rider, part of a team that saw a man retire at the start of the race today, Giorgio Cecchinelli, who we saw out in the break on the way to Dublin. 194 riders thus remaining in the Giro d'Italia. Intermediate sprint coming through. Are we going to have any contest? That is the question. The minute doesn't look so. A couple of 100 metres before the line. Bandiera coming to the front. Fedi just behind. The moment they keep on rolling and riding on and through. There is that yellow banner right up at the front there. Bandiera moving into second place. Torres coming over the last. And as it's seen, no contest whatsoever. Either a pre-agreed order or just more interested in keeping this break going as long as they can. Always find it interesting, Sean, the politics of these things. What sort of thing happens when you're in a break and you're heading up to these lines? Do you have discussions a long time before? Do you just carry on riding and whoever's at the front takes the points?
Well, depending on what's en route beforehand, sometimes you have guys who want to mark points in the mountain classification, for example. So in the break, they make a decision. Okay, you guys, you two maybe, you can take the maximum points in the GPM, and then when we get to the intermediate sprints, there's other riders. Today, there's not a lot out there because we haven't. We've had just one climb, of course. But normally, if you're in an undulating day where there's a lot of climbs, then they make that agreement. But we could see there that there was certainly an agreement there because they just rolled through, and the man, I think, the agreement was to take it. He just rolled through on the front of the group.
Bernie Eisel rolling through, doing work, and staying at the front for the moment. We're getting the time gap. That is not a stationary gap. Don't worry, it hasn't quickly gone down to 1:15. 80.8 kilometres to go. Interesting makeup at the front of the peloton at the minute. Astana in their Kazakh colours. Turquoise just behind AG Desert, the French team. A few Français des Jeux jerseys come towards the front. Nasser Bouhanni was another man who's in the hunt for the points jersey. Canadell as well, they have the points jersey. Fourth wheel there. Red jersey of Elia Viviani. The sprint battle really does resume tomorrow anyway. You see the likes of Viviani, Swift, Matthews having a go. Nasser Bouhanni won our last sprint, albeit a strange one. Conversation between Peter Veining on the right and Mr. White on the left in the car. It's been an interesting lesson in control for Orica Greenedge in the last few days. Of course, they have some very good young general classification contenders coming through. At least the Yates brothers, who we've seen in the last month in particular, riding so well. Oh, we've had a crash, and the Colombian champion is down. Rubiano visibly a little shook up there. Off comes the rain jacket. That's going to go on. And we can see why there's been a crash there. Plastic bag getting caught up in the chain and the rear mech. Is that something you see happening often?
No, it's not. And I was wondering what was the reason for the crash. I thought that the guys were maybe taking off their raincoats, a little bit of slow down the peloton, and they just get tangled together, crash into each other. Because we've seen a number of riders trying to take off their raincoats there for the past while.
Martin Kaiser was the Belkin rider from the Dutch team, just lifting his bike over Miguel Angel Rubiano. Well, he certainly had a chance to show off that jersey. A bit of magic spanner work not accepted for the moment. I think he's being shouted at now. We'll have a little look at the saddle, make sure everything's all right and give you a push along. 1 point available here for the intermediate sprint. Could be valuable though, aren't they all? 78 Ks for the breakaway, a little further behind though. Sky doing some riding, can't see Ben Swift yet though. Viviani and Buani were up there. Given the fact that they've all been ushered to the front, we are expecting a bit of a challenge for that point. Look behind for the Lambert riders to see what had happened. Luckily, Rubiano not hitting the floor with any sort of force, really. Looks okay. And we'll carry on. Here goes the sprint then. Viviani is going to be led out into a good position. Well, that is the aim, at least. A little stuck further down. Fourth wheel for those in green at the minute in the red jersey. Still looking for Ben Swift here. Bernie Eisel and Chris Sutton. In fact, Swift, third Sky rider on the road in that black and blue. The tactics here is that if Viviani cannot make the front, then a teammate of his will surely go and claim the point so that nobody else can. Francis Desjeux interested as well. There's the red jersey of the leader of the intermediate sprint at the minute. Swift on the wheel. Here comes Buani though around the corner. And the chase is on. Swift on the left-hand side. Buani is the man going for it in the blue. Viviani behind. Swift's not going to get there. It's Viviani. Won't either. Buani, I think he's going to be out-sprinted though. And that is really well taken. Superbly combative from Nicola Ruffoni of the Bardiani team. Ruffoni getting in there, taking the points out of nowhere. It's a very good sprint against Buani.
Yes, impressive. Buani just, taking up the sprint at that time, but not just powerful enough to hold on there.
Swift realising earlier he wasn't going to get there. Same with Viviani, who sat up, not wasting any more energy in the red jersey. Buani on the left-hand side, the Frenchman in the blue. Ruffoni, the Italian, riding for the pro-continental team Bardiani. We said that Bardiani would want to light things up. That is exactly what happened. Now then, what's happened here? Angelo Tulik, French rider. Chain getting completely stuck. Mechanic trying to help him out. And Mr. Ruffoni enjoyed that. Nicola Ruffoni. Party pooper. Bandiera, Torres, Zardini and Fedi. That's a break with 75.1 kilometres to go. Still got a fairly decent advantage, 4 minutes at the last count. We wait to see when they'll be closed down. Start and finish today, making their debut on the Giro d'Italia. It's always likely we were going to come to Monte Cassino for one of the anniversaries of the great battles. 70 years have passed, and today we visit. The clouds very dark, the atmosphere a little worrying for those out in front. And again, the presence of Nicola Ruffoni worrying the rest of the sprinters, going and stealing that rogue bonus point. Very, very nicely taken at the intermediate sprint. We're looking now at images of Caserta, last of the provinces that is actually in the region of Campania, where Naples and, of course, Salerno, where we've been through today, is situated. Site of the great Bourbon Palace as well, when the Bourbons were in charge down in the Kingdom of Naples. The Spanish influence very much in evidence down in Naples. Caserta, the province just to the north of it. And then we move into Lazio for the finish today, into Frosinone. And up to the abbey that was founded all the way back in 529 AD. A few spots of rain around. not particularly what we wanted to see. Everybody woke up this morning, the sun was shining. Finally we had sun on the Giro d'Italia. Finally we were here. Finally it was proper southern Italian weather. But again, just as they have been the past few days, they've been disappointed. It's funny because we got here on the rest stroke transfer day and everybody was out doing training rides in the sun. Hasn't been like that since we're into the Reggia di Caserta. You can see Mount Vesuvius in the background. You've not seen a better forecast than me, have you, Sean? The weather going to improve?
Well, it's not looking good. As we can see, you know, it gets flashes where it looks for a time the weather conditions we would be expecting down here. We see them, but they're not long-lived. And you can see in the bunch as well, I think there's a little bit of down amongst the riders because this is going on. And as we mentioned, like from the start, we had bad weather conditions, but expecting real good conditions down here in southern Italy, which is, you know, normally the case, but unfortunately we're just here at the wrong time. And when you look at Ireland at the moment, they're given so good weather the next couple of days. This weekend coming, I think they're given, you know, 20+ degrees and dry sunshine. So unfortunately the Giro was there a week too early. But yeah, that's the look of the draw, and you have no control, as they say, over the weather. But the riders, I think they're saying this weather again and again, because, you know, when they got out of Ireland, they were hoping to get nice sunshine, dry conditions, and it's not the case. And you know, it just keep on going day after day, and it just works on the morale of the riders. You can see there in the bunch, you can feel that the morale is just a little bit down, which is not normal. In the beginning of the race, everybody's feeling good, everybody's feeling fresh, and it just takes a bit from the riders.
We'll have to stop calling it Irish and British weather, maybe Giro weather, I think. The last couple of years have anything to do with it. Bandiera Torres up there in the front, alongside Fedi and Zardini. Androni Bardiani, Colombia, and Neri Sottoli, all represented in the breakaway. Danilo Hondo, experienced German pro, the second oldest rider in this race, just by a single day. His former teammate Alijet Alessandro Petacchi is the oldest rider out there, 40 years, I think it's 190 odd days. Just one day older than his former teammate Danilo Hondo. Wonderful views, by the way, a moment ago, of Mount Vesuvius and Naples in the background. Remember, we started in the city known as Napoli last year. Sprint stage for the first time in a long time on the Giro d'Italia to begin. 184 kilometres into the stage at the minute. Already been through Cava dei Tirreni. Caserta is where we are now, on our way to Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino, where the abbey lies, just above the town of Cassino itself. 30-odd thousand inhabitants, 33,600 to be precise. Formerly known as Cassinum in Roman times, San Germano after that. In fact, it actually dates back to pre-Roman age. Hondo in conversation with the car, picking up a few of those rain jackets that are required as well for Trek, who they've ridden all right. They really haven't ridden badly so far. Danilo Hondo, 2 times a stage winner at the Giro d'Italia, 85 victories, remember, was a big sprinter back in the day. Got old and slowed down, has become an important man on the road and a road captain. And they bring an interesting team to this Giro, Sean. We're looking at the likes of Kieselowski, who's the Croatian champion. He is the leader on the road alongside Julian Arredondo. 2-1-3 is a new signing from North American pro-continental signing this year. Arredondo is a Colombian by nationality, but ridden in American teams for a while. They've come here in the sprints with Giacomo Nizzolo. They have Ricardo Zoidl, the Austrian champion, perhaps for a stage in the mountains as well. Expect them to be quite combative, and certainly a little more so than we've seen them in the last couple of years under different names and guises at the Giro.
Well, I think you've called it there for the general classification. They have Kieselowski, who is, you know, a good one, but again, I don't think anything famous in the general classification he's not going to do. But a stage win, I think he's capable of it. And Arredondo, we see yesterday, you know, he is quite competitive when it kicks up at all. And if he can hold on in there at the place he's at the moment, like 110 in the general classification, Time trial is going to be a difficult one for him to limit his losses, but again, you know, he could do something in the general classification if he gets into the final week in a nice position, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes off the leader. Well, then he could, you know, do some great performances. Stage wins as well. I think they will be expecting with him to try and get something in that way. And in the sprint, we have seen them, of course. You know, they have done what they can already, and you know, the next number of days, Nizzolo in the flatter stages, I think they will try again to try and, you know, get a stage victory in that way. And yeah, it's a good mixture of team, but yeah, they'll need a bit of luck to get stage victories here.
Nico Roach, who we were talking about a little earlier on, in terms of Nizzolo and the rest of the sprinters, they're looking at tomorrow. Foligno, another 200 kilometres plus day, but a flat one, certainly towards the end. Sasso Maggiore Terme as well on Tuesday, with Rivarolo Canavese on Friday. There, the sprint days. We have our first individual, time trial coming up next week. A very, very big one as well, from Barbaresco to Barolo, celebrating the wine. For now, we commemorate. It's off to Monte Cassino today on stage 6 of this Giro d'Italia. Second feed zone being taken on by the peloton. In fact, once the organisers took it above 250 kilometres, as per UCI rules, they're obliged to put in a second feed zone. So both feed zones were changed, as there are more shoe problems for our friend Davide Villela from Cannondale. It's his first year as a pro. Impressed the stagiaire last year. It's his first Giro d'Italia as well. Quite a few interesting young riders making their debuts at this Giro. Younger average age than normal. In fact, the average age of all riders at the Giro, 28 years, 174 days. It's actually half a year younger than last year, so a couple of extra younger riders. Sky still riding on the front here, leaving us a little perplexed as to what their ambitions and ideas are. I'm sure they have their good reason. Certainly not anybody to doubt that. Paolini on the right-hand side, as usual. Very small, wide paved section as we see Marco Bandiera on the left-hand side coming through Santa Maria Capua Vetere. Bandiera is a classics rider. He's only ever ridden 2 Grand Tours in his career so far. He's in the white. I'm riding for Neri Sotoli today, Andrea Fedi. Faithful, strong worker, a man who's accumulating kilometres in the breakaways. Remember, there is a prize at the end of the Giro as well on the final presentation for the man who's been in the most kilometres in the breakaway. And we were talking about him before. Here's Robert Kieselowski, that rather unique Croatian champions jersey of his. In the top level of professional Croatian cycling, he hasn't got too much challenge for that Croatian national jersey at the minute. Svein Tuft close to the front again in the Orica green edge jersey. He's in white and blue. Richard Gredge never far from the front. And Aston Ashon will be looking to stay on their bike, stay upright and make sure nothing happens today, because they've hit the ground far too many times during this Giro. Yes,
well, they seem to be on the ground a lot. Yesterday in the final there was 3 of the riders down, and it wasn't just that they got caught in crashes in front of them. I think they slided out on the downhill. So they, after having right from the start back in Ireland, we see you know, they were falling in mass. One time there was most of the team came down on the stage into Dublin, so they're not having a good run at all. And I don't know, is it a problem? The tyres they're using, are they not as good as the others? But they seem to be having problems when it starts to get wet and when they're really pushing on in the final.
Edoardo Zardini takes his place at the front in the lime green. Very good Italian rider who took actually a win very recently at the Giro del Trentino, the warm-up event for the Giro d'Italia in the north, in the province of Trentino. Dolomites. Took his win at San Giacomo di Brentonico, pardon me. Here's that feed zone. The difference is riding, let's say, a normal stage, Sean, of 170 to maybe 210 kilometres, and then putting in those extra kilometres. You, as a big classics man yourself, used to this distance, used to winning over this distance. Are there any major changes into the eating and the hydration that you need to take on board?
Well, first of all, if the stage is 150, 160k, it's only half as boring as a 257 kilometres. And the food intake, of course, you have to eat. You have to, to be careful to eat much more food, and also, make sure you drink plenty. And when the weather conditions is not that warm, you have to, be careful that you keep on drinking all the time, because you can hydration is a problem, and there's no defined line of how much you eat. All these energy bars, bananas and all of that, you can eat the same as you're eating the previous day, but for some reason on a stage, and not on the longer stages, it just can be pretty much the same distance as you've had, and you start running out of energy. And we always hear about the guys, getting the hunger knock, hitting the wall in the end. It happens so many times to the professionals in those races, and I think a lot of people be asking the question, well, how come they do not know how much to eat, because they're doing it every day, they do it so much year after year, but it doesn't work like that. Sometimes the body, the reaction, the weather conditions as well, if it's a little bit colder, maybe you burn more calories, so you need more of an intake, and you just have to keep on nibbling all the time and drinking all the time on the normal stages. On the long day, you have to be that bit more careful. And we often hear the director sportifs, saying to the riders, keep on eating. And when we have the onboard cameras, we had it in some of the classics this year, we heard so many times the directors saying to the riders, okay guys, eat now, keep on eating and keep on drinking.
71.4 kilometres to go through Santa Maria Capua Vetere, one of the richest and greatest towns in antiquity in Italy. That huge Roman amphitheatre we saw a moment ago, the Amphitheatro Campano, second largest of its kind in the world. He's missing out on the fun.
Well, he realised there's something happening. We can see he's very alert.
Sean, as a farm man, you'll know that. You know what he's thinking. Do you keep any of those at home?
Yeah, still have a few. I've had them for a long time, and yeah, they're an animal that if there's something going on, something happening out of the ordinary, well, they are very alert, and you could see there he was the ears up, and he was looking. He knew there was a bike race going by.
The cracking of the gears, the roll of the chain, and of course the clapping and emotions of the crowd, which is what the Giro d'Italia is about. Famous for its fans, and of course so important for the role it's played in nation building in Italy, the Giro d'Italia. Today's a real illustration of that. We go back to one of those important moments in Italian history, and certainly with, as far as Monte Cassino is concerned, in world history, a real turning point in the battle for the Italian peninsula in the Second World War. Again, an unquantifiable amount of pain, destruction and death that was caused back then. Of course, cemeteries on all sides. In particular, there are a lot of German and Polish losses here. And a huge Commonwealth cemetery as well, to honour all those that died in the conflict. We're off for a quick commercial break here on the Giro d'Italia. Please stay with Sean and I. We'll be back as the race to Monte Cassino continues. 70 kilometres to go. Thanks to Mike Evans, who suggested sky riding on the front with burning eyes, so to keep our female viewers happy at home. It's one theory. We're on our way into Monte Cassino today. 257 kilometres in the end, a slightly modified stage. Landslide early on in the course due to all this bad weather, of course, not cleaned up in time, so had a bit of a diversion. Makes the peloton's day longer, gives them an extra meal. Of course, remember, we explained the science and, of course, everything else around eating, drinking, staying hydrated, ready and fueled. All depends on the genetics of each person as well. There is no one scientific equation that works for everybody. Dekker riding towards the front as well here. Movistar in formation, and perhaps, Sean, with everybody a little bit more strung out after the feed zone, they want to just keep on top of this advantage and this gap again, which had got close to 6 minutes again.
Yes, it is a surprising one, and when you look at the guys that are in the breakaway, of course, for the race leader and for the team Orica Green Edge, they're not concerned because they're a long ways off, and with the uphill finish they're going to lose a lot of their advantage anyway. So maybe that's the teams that are riding in the front, but Sky again, as we spoke on earlier, that it's difficult to see them, you know, being that dominant and being that confident that they can ride in the front here. And if it is for the stage victory, I don't know, maybe there's a football match or something on. The riders want to get in quickly to see it.
Well, the Europa League final was last night, and by all accounts it was a bore anyway. 0-0 after extra time. That was held here in Italy as well, in Turin. The Spanish lot will be happy. Sevilla winning on penalties in the end. 67.3 k's to go. So lunch being digested, a few musettes being thrown towards those on the side of the road, and the crowds have been excellent again in the south of Italy, as they invariably are. Don't often get to see too much of the Giro d'Italia. I've had the odd start down here. Front of the peloton, some bottle running being done. Tinkoff Saxo in their yellow and blue. Watch out for them today with Rafa Majka, Polish rider. Briefly mentioned, of course, the Polish soldiers who died in 1944 at Monte Cassino. Przemysław Niemiec, close yesterday, looking to try and do something for his nation today. This is Fabio Aru going back to take some bottles, the Sardinian rider. But Rafa Majka yesterday said he was looking after the white jersey for Michael Matthews. Quite nicely in his interview after, said, in fairly cocky fashion, tomorrow I'm going to make it mine. He's a rider who rode really, really well in the Giro d'Italia last year. Interesting to see how he goes in that fight for the white jersey. At the minute, Michael Matthews is there. He's in pink and white. Of course, both of those linked together. I think the day he loses one will be the day he loses another, certainly with the presence of Majka not too far behind on both classifications. And we were lucky enough to get a quick word with Michael Matthews earlier on this morning before the start.
Yeah, I'll definitely do my best to survive and to try and keep the jersey. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard all day out there for everyone. It's 260k in the end, so yeah, I think everyone's in the same boat for the conditions today. So yeah, I'll definitely be doing my best to try and keep the jersey. It's been a really good experience so far for me and the team. It started off really well with the team's time trial, and now we've just kept the ball rolling with the pink jersey. So we're not going to give it up easy.
Nice to hear that fight from Orica Green Edge, and certainly easier to show that fight even in the nasty conditions we've seen, and with the odd bit of street furniture that hasn't been fantastically signalled in advance. It's easier to do that when you're winning and confidence, adrenaline is flowing through the team, Sean, like it is with Orica Green Edge. Remember, what a month they've had. Liège-Bastogne-Liège, so good in the Tour of Turkey, winners there as well. 3 stages in the Tour de Romandie, and here they've been the dominant team.
Yes, well, they've had a fabulous, a dream start to the beginning of the season, a dream start to the Giro, winning the team time trial, and then, you know, being pink jersey within the team right from the start. And Matthews is riding real strong. Yesterday was a real good performance for him, and I think, you know, the morale will be really good today. He'll be hoping that he can stay up there today, and if he gets close to the finish without having to do anything and just follow the other big favourites, he is a candidate for a stage victory. And I was surprised that he was so good. I didn't think his climbing ability was that great, and he did talk about sprinting. He said, I'm not really good at the moment, but my climbing is much better, and it certainly proved yesterday.
We'll see how he develops and goes on throughout this Giro d'Italia. First Giro for him. Again, success at the beginning. I'm sure there'll be hard days where he has to learn, and he will get the benefit of that, and certain. Friendly conversation at the front. Good friends from quite a long way back. Certainly Patrick Gretsch on the left-hand side, Bernie Eisel in the middle as well. We've seen Danilo Hondo. Experienced men in the peloton all do a very similar job for their teams. And again, not too much going on, the fact that there's an opportunity for a few photographs. They were strung out not too long ago. It's all bunched up at the middle, and there certainly doesn't seem to be too much urgency there.
No urgency at all, and they haven't been for a long time. And I think it's just out of boredom that there's some of the teams riding, and I think Bernie Eisel, that's the reason he's just keeping it rolling on the front and to try and get the kilometres to go by quickly, because as we said, almost 260 kilometres, it's a long day, and when you get a breakaway out, and the breakaway, the composition of it, nobody danger in the general classification. The man is best is Zardini, he's at 4:53, so there's nothing to worry about for the team of Michael Matthews, and for that reason the other teams just want to keep the thing rolling and try and get the kilometres click by as quick as they can.
Running through an area, as we saw yesterday, that was occupied in antiquity by Hannibal. And of course, it's a good moment to tell you that Eurosport's own blog has written a book about the route that was taken by his army. I think he actually rode it, bizarrely enough, all the way across the mountains. Crazy. At Saddleblaze on Twitter. And have a look at his new book, which is out very soon, I believe. Mr. Blazing Saddles, Eurosport's own blogger. Plenty of books coming out around, and articles being written about the Giro and the history of it as well. A lot of press has been given to Richard. New effort. Geronimo is out. I have to thank our fellow colleague Jonathan Arispas for leaving me a copy as well. Get stuck into that in the next few weeks. So much literary history along this route as well. Sean was just saying that it's nice and calm at the minute. A lot of conversations going on. Ben Swift in conversation. And I think it's time after the second lunch of the day for everybody to take an actual break. Yuki Arashiro. I saw a nice moment a few kilometres back where he's able to have a conversation in his native language. It's not the easiest thing in the pro peloton because there aren't too many Japanese riders about, but had a chat with Fumiyuki Beppu, Trek Factory racing rider. Europe car finishing off their snacks. Time you lot got a cup of tea as well. Commercial break time, we'll see you in a minute. Back from coffee time, 61.9 kilometres to go. Gap being controlled. We're not getting too many updates on the stages of a gap. I get the feeling it isn't changing too much. Davide Apollonio there, the rider wearing 12. Andre Zeitz going past as well, as we see Philip Dignan. CJ Sutton still very close to the front. Late call up to the Giro d'Italia for him. Ivan Santoromita there. Italian champion who wants a stage on this race. Damiano Cunego in conversation. A chat with Dario Cataldo. A rider who Sean was certainly talking up. Showed very good form yesterday. Loves riding the Giro d'Italia. We said it was all about the fans. There's the evidence. Rodolfo Torres at the front. Marco Bandiera right at the back. This is Zardini of Bardiani. And Andrea Ferri just out of your picture in the luminous yellow for the Neri Sottoli team. It's on our way to Monte Cassino today. 257 kilometres instead of the forecast, and arranged 247. That was due to a little change in the route, landslide along the way. Certainly the roads in the south of Italy not generally as good as the rest. Dennis van den Dert pulling faces. David Tanner, Australian rider for Belkin. 15 minutes and 19 seconds down already, but there's Teamwork and a strong ruler. Not too many worries about the overall, just making sure that any knee pain is located. Big job for the riders, all about recovery. Every night they get the massages. As Sean said, they have to eat well and look after themselves. Not always easy to get the correct sleep either. I know that a lot of teams go and move around and change around the linen and beds and everything. Certainly Team Sky have been big on changing duvets and bed covers. There's Mikel Landa hanging in and around the doctor's car. Took a fall yesterday towards the end of that stage 5. Brake rumbles on. Conversation on the radio for the rider from Colombia, Rodolfo Torres, 7 minutes and 5 behind. Best placed rider from the Colombian team. Well, on GC it's not looking good for them already. Fabio Duarte, 2 minutes 24 back already. Yes, they'll be looking good in the mountains. You would have thought they'd be trying to look after somebody like Duarte for a good positioning overall. One of those highly rated riders that we're yet to see. Superstar. Mikel Landa making his way back up after the visit to the doctor. Hopefully all is in order. There's Alexandre Genier as well at the back. 2 minutes 29 down. Both he and Francine Mouret are the French riders that are being looked after. The Trek train. Very easy to spot Julian Arredondo. He's probably just about the smallest rider in the peloton. Kieselowski at the back, equally as visible. Croatian rider as Bernie Eisel comes up to the front. Trek seemingly want to put the pace on here. Bernie Eisel, as ever, master of ceremonies at the front. Talked about in our commentary on stage 4, where we had all of those problems, the political wrangling between the peloton, but how important those guys are on, both on the road and, of course, in the team buses as well. Fabio Fellini there, Italian rider in the Trek team, already been down on the ground so far. Abrasions to his left knee and his right elbow. Ivan Basso having a lunchtime conversation as well. Stayed nice and quiet so far in this Giro d'Italia. Been up there, not losing any time really. Half decent team time trial as well. Double Giro winner 2006 and 2010. And the peloton being followed. So Trek deciding to up the pace slightly. Bernie Eisel coming to the front, having a word with them. 6 minutes and 34, that gap has gone out again. Eisel's presence was just to monitor things and deliver a message. And then I think his message was something along the lines of, OK, time to step it up again now. Never mind the team radios, the walkie-talkie there. I wonder if he's got a problem with his radio. Back he goes to the Androni car. Bandiera, Torres, Zardini and Fedi inside 60Ks, waiting for the big things to happen on the way into Monte Cassino. Having a look at our final climb, and what awaits us, of course, we've got the scenery, we've got the historic abbey, all that it means in world history, and of course all that it meant as well before it was destroyed by an earthquake as well. The Saracens came in and destroyed the place a few centuries back as well. Fantastic interview this morning in the Gazzetta dello Sport, the newspaper of the organisers. We get the latest gap of 6:34. Talking to one of the bombers on board, the American bombers that were over raining bombs down on the Abbey. Walter Michael Miller, just 21 then. saying that it was a destruction that stayed with him for all of his life. Inspired him to write as well. Who's going to be inspired on the way up today? 7 hairpin turns. The gradient isn't something that the riders are going to worry about too much, Sean, is it? I don't think, certainly in terms of really interfering with them losing a lot of time. But again, if somebody's feeling good, then they could do a bit of damage, as well as the small gaps we might get like yesterday. We're talking time bonuses, which is exactly what those who perhaps lost time in the opening days through the odd crash and the odd split in the peloton, and certainly on the team time trial, people like Joaquim Rodriguez, who we saw yesterday, trying to make some time up with the time bonuses, Sean.
Well, I think Joaquim Rodriguez yesterday, he was going for the stage. He loves that style of finish uphill, and we know how good he is when he's at his best, but unfortunately I don't think he's there yet. But it's good to see him contesting yesterday, because we were concerned at the start of this Giro, how long the injury was going to keep handicapping him, and it looks like that he's getting out of that. This finish today is going to be an interesting one. The stage has been so boring, I suppose, the word. You can't describe it any other way. And the riders as well, they are just trying to get it over as quickly as possible. But nobody wants to commit here on the front. We see Sky are the ones who have been doing quite a lot. And of course, the team of race leader Matthews, they're not going to push on here because they don't have to do it for the moment. And the other thing is, are they playing the game as well? Although all the talk, they're talking it up that Matthews is going to go for today, but the way they're leaving it hanging out at the moment, I think they're making the other teams commit as well to do something on the front, and they're not going to take all the workload on their hands. And the final climb is, it will be interesting to see what way we'll approach it. Will they really go in the last 25-30 kilometres? Will they really go fast before it, or will they just roll onto the climb? And then will they start attacking each other, or will they just looking around and see who's going to take it up? And if that happens, well, then we could see it going a long ways into the climb before we see any great action. So the lead into the climb, I think that will have a big bearing. If it gets very nervous and it gets very fast before we go onto the climb, well, then it could continue on right from the bottom slopes of this one.
Aurelio Fischer almost ripping off the wing mirror there as he was getting a bit of a head start back. We've been asked a few times on Twitter about cranks on the bikes by those of you, pardon me, joining us for the first time on the Giro d'Italia, Sean. A few people who may have been out riding with triple chain sets asking why the riders aren't using them here, Sean. Just give those an explanation, if you will.
Well, I think with the ratio of gears we have at the moment, you have the 39 in a ring, and then you have a 53, 54 outside ring. And then you have an 11 sprocket on the rear, and you have such a combination on the rear now that you don't need any lower. And those guys out here, they're so powerful, and they just go up the hill so fast. They don't really need that lower gear. That's for the guys like us who go out and ride the bike.
The granny gears for us.
Yes, when you go out and ride the route, maybe you ride the end of a stage, and if there's a climb, well, then you definitely need the granny gears. And for the normal tourist cyclosportive, that's what you need, the granny gear triple.
Thanks for all your comments on Monte Cassino. Great to hear a lot of you who had family members up there and involved in the conflict, riding in and giving us your thoughts. We'd love to hear more. Hashtag Eurosport Cycling, @RobHatchTV. If you have any questions on today's finish, where we're finishing, where we're riding through, or questions for Sean as well. Technical questions always welcome. Cycling, the most complex of sports, but of course once you get into it, one of the most beautiful. 55 kilometres to go. These are our breakaway riders: Bandiera Torres, Zardini and Fedi. It's an almost entirely Italian break. And the Colombian who's in there, well, he's in a team that's run by Italians. Signor Corti and the rest, who we met at the airport on Sunday night in Dublin. Wonderfully fanatical about the sport, the Colombians. Say it again, that Bogota has more bike paths for a big city than any other capital city in the world. It's a huge sport, and there are massively rural areas of Colombia as well. Bikes, the only real form of getting around. 6 minutes, the latest time gap. Sorry, Sean.
Sorry, in the breakaway, it's all Italian bikes. I say Chippo there, he has 2 bikes in this breakaway.
Happy. Cipollini, of course, super stage winner on the Giro d'Italia, into making his bikes now, and he's gone a little quiet in the last 12 months with his public appearances, but we see the odd shot of him riding shirtless, don't we, in the magazines, and likes to show himself off, keeps himself fit, and obviously doing very, very, very well with his bikes. A couple of teams using them, as you say, Sean.
Yes, and it's we see here in the breakaway there's 2 riders with the Cipollini bikes, so he'll be happy. And of course, the Italian bike builders, Italian brand of bikes, it goes back so many years. They're really into their bikes down there, and the bike building, there's so much history attached to it.
Well, from the past to the present, this is where we are at the moment. 204 kilometres ridden, but a long way still to go today. This is the longest day of the Giro d'Italia. 54 kilometres of which remain on our way to Monte Cassino. Today was always going to be a waiting game. See what happened with the break. Who was there? We expected the smaller teams to attack. Certainly the Italian-based smaller teams, the ones we've just been talking about. Colombia there to attack always. And looking at the mountain gradient as well, not quite hard enough, you feel, for some of the big Colombian climbers to have a real go as well and make a huge difference, is it? They'll certainly have a go, but whether they can make that big difference, well, not quite sure.
Well, I don't think the percentage is great enough. You know, at times it does kick up to 6% at the bottom. When they come onto the climb, there is a section where it is 10%. But apart from that, you know, it's 4 or 5%. As I said, most of the time, it's not something that the real lightweight guys can create a gap on. And you know, the bigger guys, the stronger guys, they can get up this sort of climb. So it's not really for the little tiny lightweight climbers. The gradient is not great enough, and it's more of a puncher. Again, we will see the guys who we see yesterday, an Ulissi, for example, you know, who can get over those sort of climbs and still be very powerful in the end and have that explosive finish.